Hi everyone, I will to talk about tax in this video. Tax investigations, tax audits, importance of tax, penalties and benefits of filing tax early. The tax audits and investigations are the self-assessment system activities to promote voluntary compliance with the relevant tax laws and regulations. Tax investigation will be carried on by surprise, which also known as back duty case. When there is evidence showing the taxpayer has the intention to avoid paying the tax, the tax investigator will arrive at the premises and take the custody of the required documents for investigation purposes. Besides that, additional notice may be served if required. It also will request the taxpayers, creditors and the bankers of the taxpayer to obtain additional information to invent the best judgment of the tax affairs of the taxpayer. If necessary, tax investigator will require an interview with the taxpayer for further information. There are two categories of tax investigations. Civil tax investigation involves the activity of detection of tax evasion, leading taxpayers have the responsibility to recover the tax loss and coupled with heavy penalties. Criminal tax investigations focus on gathering evidences that prosecute and believe the tax evader breached the law. Unlike tax investigation, tax audit are not conducted surprisingly. It is conducted on behalf of the owners only and the appointment will made by them. The taxpayers are advised of the date and estimate of the duration of the audit. The scope of audit will also be defined in order to let the taxpayer prepare the document which required. Tax audit can be classified into two categories. Desk audit is reviewing the information on income and expenses and types of claims made by a taxpayer in his income tax return. Next, field audit is the most common way of audit. It takes place in the taxpayer's premises for a detailed review of relevant document. Finally, the aim of tax investigation varies from business to business, ensuring the amounts of tax collected and determine offences to tax evader. Meanwhile, the aim of tax audit is to determine a true and fair view of the business records. Audit officer need to ensure the amount of tax paid and reported is correct. If a friend or family member is asking you for tax advice that you're not sure of the answers to, you might want to just direct them to the LHDN, or a qualified professional if their taxes are complex. Section 114(1)(a) makes it an offense for a person to advise another person on tax if it results in them under-declaring their taxes, unless you can prove that you took reasonable care to make sure that your advice was solid and accurate. You could be fined Rm 200, Rm 20,000 and or jailed for up to 3 years. This law actually applies more to professionals who deal with tax such as accountants and tax lawyers, but if you're telling your friend to leave their freelance income out of their tax return, then you could be scooped up under this law. Income earner need to submit tax return to the LHDN by 30th April each year and 30th June for those who carry out a business. This is written in Section 77(1) of the Income Tax Act 1967. But if you don't earn enough to be taxed, you only need to file a return if you have income that can be taxed, such as chargeable income. If you've never filed a tax return before, and you don't earn enough to be taxed, you're not required to submit your tax return. This is so you don't suddenly fall off the grid, which could put you in a high-risk profile for tax evasion. And that could make you a candidate for a tax audit to verify your tax returns. According to LHDN, you can be audited for up to 5 years of assessment, and there is no time limit on the audit if there is fraud or tax evasion. This is a pretty straightforward tax offense. It is stated in Section 113(1) of the Income Tax Act. Unless you made an honest mistake, giving incorrect information about your income can earn you Rm 1,000 to Rm 10,000 in fines plus 200% of the undercharged tax. An obvious tax offense, but one worth mentioning because you can be barred from leaving the country for it. Under Section 114, evading taxes under any of the listed methods is an offense punishable by a fine of Rm 1,000 to Rm 20,000 in addition to 300% of the tax you tried to avoid paying. Under Section 104, the Director General of the LHDN can also issue a certificate to any Commissioner of Police or Director of Immigration with your details and the details of any taxes you owe, and you can be prevented from leaving Malaysia until all your tax debts have been settled. If this certificate has been issued, it's a crime to try and leave Malaysia without paying your taxes off under Section 115, which carries a punishment of Rm200 to Rm20,000 in fines, and or up to 6 months in jail. The law actually puts a duty on us to keep documents that affect our chargeable income. Section 82A1 and 2 actually require us to keep those documents for at least 7 years, and it applies whether or not we're paying taxes. At the very least, you're keeping proof that your chargeable income is not high enough to be taxed. These documents are defined as your statements of income and expenditure, as well as any invoices, vouchers, receipts, and any other documents that can verify the details of your tax returns. Section 82A4 requires you to keep any electronic records in a readily accessible format and convertible to writing, or basically if you can print it, and you should also keep the hard copy of any manual form documents you store electronically. You might want to make photocopies of them as well, since the ink fades over time. How you ever think before why we have to pay taxes? Tax is important because it is a social responsibility and contribution to the country. The taxes we pay will go to the government funds and will be used to developing and improve the government facilities and life of Malaysians inside and outside our country. The money you pay in taxes goes to many places, such as building roads, school, government salaries, and improve government services. In addition to paying the salaries of government workers, your tax dollars also help to support common resources such as police and firefighters. If the income earners will illegally reduce the amount of tax obligations, the government will have no funds on hand and will resort to availing private or foreign loans in order to govern the country. The government will lesser funds to build roads, school, infrastructure that decrease morale, which leads to poor government services. 5 benefits of filing tax early. First benefit is to eliminate tax deadline stress. Though filing taxes may be an unpleasant task, it's always best to get it done as soon as possible so that you do not get tangled among the last-minute rush taxpayers. Second benefit is more time to plan out financials. When you file your taxes, you'll know exactly how much you will have to pay or how much refund you can get back. File your taxes early to know how much you owe, plan out your financials, and get that tax bill out of the way. Third benefits is faster tax refunds. This is another common reason to file taxes early, is to receive your tax refund earlier, if you have any. Taxpayers using e-filing typically gets their refunds credited directly into their bank accounts within 30 days after the income declaration is made. Fourth benefit is to protect your income tax returns from identity theft. Filing income taxes early may not eliminate the threat of identity theft, but it can protect your refund. The purpose of a fraudulent tax return is undoubtedly to pocket your tax refund. Fifth benefit is avoid paying penalty. If you fail to file your tax returns before the April 30th deadline, you will be liable to pay a penalty. You might think that you have plenty of time to prepare your e-filing, as end of April might seem far away, but you can't predict what can happen suddenly. That's all. Thank you for watching.